I'm so glad you're here. This is Avery After Dark, and I'm your host, Avery Ross. Today's episode, we're getting very eerie with 3 true ghost stories. Real people with real paranormal encounters. You ready? And if you love mysteries and the supernatural, subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, and turn on post notifications. Our first story. This is the Haunted Manor. I'm still trying to wrap my head around an experience I had last month. To start things off, I am a total history buff. I make it a point to try and visit as many museums and historic spots as possible. There's this historic house in my town, an old manor. It was built in the early 1900s and now operates as kind of a bed and breakfast / event venue. Creaky floorboards, chandeliers, antique furniture. They host events pretty regularly, and a few friends and I decided to go to one of their murder mystery dinner nights. This one was 1920s themed. Flapper dresses, suspenders, jazz music, the Gatsby vibe. The actors were amazing, completely in character from the moment you walked in. You'd swear you were at a dinner party in 1925. The night was honestly a blast. There were fake clues at each table, quote-unquote murder weapons hidden in drawers, and the cast did an incredible job of keeping the atmosphere alive. About halfway through the dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom, which was down this long, narrow hallway near the back of the house. As I was coming out of the restroom, I saw a man standing at the far end of the hallway. He was wearing a 3-piece suit with pinstripes, a dark vest, shiny shoes, and had this really thick, neatly styled mustache. Honestly, he looked like he stepped right out of an old photo. I assumed he was one of the actors, maybe a new character, being introduced later in the night. As I passed by on my way back to the event, I smiled and said, "You all are doing such a great job. This is so much fun." He didn't respond, just stared at me. Not in a threatening way, but blank, calm. He slowly nodded, like one of those super subtle, old-fashioned acknowledgments. Then just stayed there, still. I got kind of awkward, laughed it off, and made my way back to the dining room. Later, during dessert, I realized something weird. I hadn't seen that guy again. He didn't show up in any of the final scenes. He wasn't mingling during the conclusion or the group photo we all took. I even asked one of the cast members where the tall guy with the mustache went. They looked confused and said, "There's no one in the show like that." At the end of the night, we were walking out and passing the hallway near the front parlor, where they display old photographs and documents from the house's history. I stopped, dead in my tracks. There, in a large antique gold frame, was the man I saw in the hallway. Same mustache, same suit, same cold, unreadable stare. The placard under the photo said, "Mr. Ashford, 1883 to 1938, original owner and architect of the manor." I stared at that photo for a long time. My friend thought I was joking when I said, "That's the guy I saw." But I swear to you, it was him. Exactly him. And he's been dead since 1938. As we left, some staff was on the front porch, and I straight up asked them if the place was haunted. I told them what happened, and they didn't seem shocked in the slightest. I learned that he's appeared to employees there on countless occasions. They say he's quiet. No one has ever heard him talk. But both those who work there and guests have reported seeing him, and I'm not the only one who's felt something in that hallway. After I got home, I looked up some reviews of the house online and found a few people talking about the energy near the back of the building, especially around the time of events. I am 100% sure that I spoke to a ghost. I always thought ghosts would be scary, but this was the opposite. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And if you thought that was good, wait until you hear our next story. This is the woman in white. Something's been happening at my job that I haven't been able to explain. I tried brushing it off, telling myself it was stress or exhaustion. But things are getting really weird, and I can't keep pretending it's nothing. I work the overnight shift at a distribution center in Ohio. It's one of those massive warehouses. Huge rooms full of tall metal racks stacked with boxes. The place is so big, we use walkie-talkies to communicate across zones. There may be 6 or 7 of us working at night, each assigned to a zone, A through F. And we just check in periodically or call each other if something needs restocking or moved. I've only been working here for about a month. At first, it was great. Boring, yeah, but easy money. You just walk the aisles, maybe listen to music in one ear, and make sure nobody's sleeping on the job or stealing. But then, last week, the walkie-talkie started doing something strange. It was maybe 2:30 in the morning. I was in Zone C doing a normal pass when the radio on my belt crackled. I stopped walking, thought someone was trying to reach me. What I heard was just one word. Hello? It was a woman's voice, soft, but the tone was off. There was something empty about it. I responded, "This is C-Zone. Who said that?" No response. A few seconds later, that same woman's voice again. "Are you there?" Her voice came through over the walkie-talkie again with a bit of static. I said, "Yes, who is this?" Again, no answer. I stood between the shelves, listening, thinking maybe one of the guys was messing with me. But that didn't really make sense. The only women on the team work the day shift, and the guys I work with definitely don't have voices like that. I asked on Channel 2, our main channel, "Hey, did anyone just switch to my frequency and say something?" Dave in Zone D responded that he didn't hear anything. Everyone else said the same. I figured it was an interference. Maybe some random person outside had a walkie on a similar channel. It happens. But it didn't stop. A few nights later, around 2:15 a.m., I heard it again. The walkie-talkie clicked on. The voice said, "Carson." That's my name. It was the same woman's voice from the other night. I froze. "Yeah, who is this?" I responded. Silence. I switched channels again, asked if someone called my name. No one responded. Then, without me pressing anything, the walkie crackled again. The voice said, "Behind you." I turned around so fast. I began frantically looking around for someone. Anyone. But there was no one. Just boxes. Cold air. Silence. I told myself it was broken or someone was messing with me and I'd figure it out. For over an hour, nothing. Just silence and the occasional static burst. Then, around 3:30 a.m., the walkie-talkie flared to life. Static like crazy. I could swear I heard the woman's voice again, but it was hard to make out what she was saying. A couple nights later, I'm back for another shift. And the longer the night went on, the more relieved I was, as nothing strange had happened. I felt like I could finally start to relax. It was around 3 a.m., and the warehouse was dead silent. I was working on some inventory on the far end of the warehouse. And then I heard it. Footsteps. But not just any footsteps. The sharp, unmistakable, echoing sound of high heels. Far off, behind one of the shelving rows in Zone E. I stood, completely still. I listened. There's no reason anyone would be wearing heels in a warehouse, and no women on the night shift. None. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Just the walkie, crackling softly. I started walking the opposite way towards the front office. I wasn't about to check it out alone. When I passed by the security monitors, I swear, I saw someone on one of the cameras for a second. A figure in white, standing perfectly still between the shelves. By the time I looked closer, they were gone. But now I hear things even when the walkie's off. Sometimes it's footsteps, sometimes it's whispering. And throughout my shifts, that undeniable feeling that someone is standing right behind me, a presence. But when I turn around, there's no one there. I don't really want to ask these guys if the place is haunted. Probably not the best way to fit in with them. But I believe it is. That voice isn't coming from someone living. It's coming from somewhere else. It feels like she, this woman, is taunting me in a way, messing with me. I'm not sure how long I'll stay at this job. Working nights has started to take a toll on me. And dealing with some kind of lady ghost on top of that, they aren't paying me enough for that. I have a shift tonight, and I can honestly say that I'm a bit nervous about what she'll do next. Now, our next story. This is Grandma's house. This past winter, my grandmother passed away. I miss her a lot. Her passing wasn't a surprise, as she had been having some pretty intense health problems for the past few years. But she was like a mom to me. She raised me for a few years when I was little, so we were close. She lived alone in a small house on the edge of town, a one-story ranch-style place with a big garden she used to fuss over every day. After she passed away, the house was left to my family. My mom and dad already have their own house, and they suggested I live there. I was in between apartments and couldn't afford much, so I decided to move in for a while. At first, it was comforting. The place still smelled like her. Lavender and rose soap. Her knickknacks were everywhere. I left everything just as she had it, even the little glass figurines in the window. I moved my things into the room I used to stay in as a kid. It felt too weird to take her bedroom. I left that as is. The first strange thing happened about a week in. I was in bed, reading, when I heard the familiar sound of a spoon making that tinking sound on a mug from the kitchen. The sound was faint and quick. This was familiar, as multiple times a day my grandma, a big coffee drinker, would stir in the cream and sugar in her coffee, then make that exact sound. I should have been scared, I guess, but I wasn't. It felt nice. I even smiled. I said out loud, "Hi, Grandma." My grandma and I were very close, so the thought of her still being here to check in on me didn't surprise me. I also believe in the paranormal, having a few experiences of my own throughout my life. After that, little things started happening. The hallway light would turn on by itself. I'd hear footsteps. I'd come home from work to find the TV on, when I know I turned it off. It was like she was still there, still watching out for me. I started saying goodnight to her, even talking to her sometimes. I've been trying to keep up her garden, watering the flowers on these super hot days. So I would say things like, "I'm doing my best to keep your garden looking good, Grandma." It felt comforting. But then, things started to change. About a week ago, I came home from work and found every cabinet in the kitchen wide open. Every single one. The teacup I usually left out was shattered on the floor. I thought that was strange. Maybe my cat Bisbee knocked it over, although I didn't really believe that. And speaking of my cat, usually Bisbee is really laid back, but I've noticed him acting strangely lately. We'll be sitting in the same room when, out of nowhere, he'll sit up on high alert, and it seems like he's tracking something moving around the room. I've caught him staring at corners in the house. It seems like he's terrified. His tail will fluff up, his eyes get dark, like he's scared. I've had Bisbee for 6 years. I've never seen him act like that. The worst thing happened 2 nights ago. I'd just gotten into bed and turned off all the lights, laying there halfway between awake and asleep, when I felt like something was in the room with me, a pressure. I opened my eyes, and I saw someone standing at the foot of my bed. The figure was illuminated only from an outside light pouring in through the bedroom window. So it was dark, but I could still see. The figure looked like my grandmother. Same robe she wore, same silver curls. But the face, it wasn't right. It was blurry. And her hands, her fingers were too long. Way too long. She didn't move, just stood there, head tilted. I screamed and quickly leaned over to turn on the lamp. When I flicked on the light, she was gone. I was more scared than I had ever been in my life. This didn't feel like my grandma. She was one of the most loving people. I don't feel she would ever try to scare me like that. I slept with all the lights on that night, and I've been staying at a friend's house ever since. My grandma's house is empty again, but I don't think it was ever my grandma. I think something else lives there. And I wonder if me acknowledging it somehow encouraged it. I know one thing. For whatever reason, it wants me to think it's her. What could it be? I've seen videos of mimics, but I don't know what this is, because it isn't just her voice. It seems to be impersonating her. I'm also not sure where this came from. My grandma never said anything about the house being haunted. I never felt anything when I lived there. I don't know what's going on in that house. And I'm afraid to go back. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode. Let me know which story was your favorite in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, give this video a like. I can't wait until next episode. Until then, check out these videos. You could pick that one. Very spooky. Or that one. Very scary. Both great choices.